Why do some men in committed relationships still chase other women? It's not just about lust. It's often a deep psychological struggle. If you've ever been pursued by a man who already has a wife or girlfriend, you know how confusing it can be. He might seem genuinely drawn to you, even conflicted, yet he stays in his relationship. So what's really going on? Is it about you? Is it about him? Or is it something much deeper hidden in the unconscious mind? This isn't just about cheating or selfishness, though those can play a part. The truth is, human behavior is rarely that simple. According to renowned psychologist Carl Jung, our actions are often driven by forces we don't fully understand. Unconscious desires, unresolved wounds, and hidden parts of ourselves that we project onto others. Jung believed that the unconscious mind holds the key to understanding why people repeat destructive patterns. When a man in a committed relationship seeks out another woman, it's often because he's grappling with something deeper within himself, a split between what he thinks he wants and what his unconscious truly craves. He may be projecting his unmet needs, fantasies, or even repressed parts of his own psyche onto someone new, mistaking infatuation for real connection. In this video, we'll explore 3 key Jungian ideas that explain this behavior. The anima, the unconscious feminine ideal he may be projecting onto you, the shadow, the hidden, often denied parts of himself that drive secret desires, and the unresolved inner conflict behind why he stays torn between stability and escape. By the end, you'll understand not just what he's doing, but why, and most importantly, what it means for you. Because when a man seeks you out while still holding on to another relationship, it's rarely about love. It's about something much more primal, much more psychological, and once you see it, you'll never fall for the illusion again. At the heart of this pattern lies one of Carl Jung's most influential ideas, the anima, the unconscious feminine dimension within every man. This isn't about biology or even personal preference, but something far more primal, an archetypal force shaping how a man experiences desire, connection, and even his own sense of wholeness. The anima represents all that's mysterious, alluring, and emotionally intoxicating to him, not because of who you actually are, but because of what you symbolically represent in his psyche. When a man in a committed relationship becomes fixated on another woman, he's often not seeing her clearly. Instead, he's projecting onto her the unexpressed, unintegrated parts of himself, the tenderness he suppresses to appear strong, the wildness he denies to maintain control, or the depth he's afraid to claim in his everyday life. This projection creates a dangerous illusion. The woman he pursues becomes a canvas for his unconscious longings, painted with qualities his current relationship may seem to lack, not because his partner is deficient, but because no single human being can fulfill an archetype. The new woman seems to hold the missing piece, whether it's excitement, understanding, or a sense of destiny. But here's the painful truth. He's not truly seeing her. He's enchanted by the reflection of his own inner world, mistaking the glow of projection for genuine connection. This explains why these affairs often follow a predictable arc, intense chemistry that fades, followed by disappointment. When reality intrudes, the fantasy breaks down, not because she changes, but because no real person can carry the weight of being someone else's salvation. Consider the man who leaves his practical, steady wife for a free-spirited artist, only to later resent her unpredictability, or the executive who risks his marriage for an understanding listener, then withdraws when she needs emotional support in return. These aren't just cases of the grass is greener. They're repeats of an old psychological pattern. The anima, when unrecognized, acts like a siren's call, drawing men toward whatever form promises completion in that moment. But without conscious effort, the cycle continues. He may leave the artist for someone grounded, or leave the nurturer for someone mysterious, forever chasing the illusion that the right partner will fill the void within. The tragedy and the key to breaking the pattern lies in recognizing that this pursuit was never about mature love. It was about a pull toward the rush of the unknown, the thrill of the unintegrated self momentarily made real. Until a man faces his own inner world, until he stops seeking in others what he must find within, he'll stay trapped in this loop, mistaking the mirror for the window and the dream for the woman standing in front of him. Beneath the surface of this behavior lies another powerful Jungian idea: the shadow. This is the part of the mind that holds everything a man has been taught to deny: his vulnerabilities, his forbidden desires, the traits he considers unacceptable. Society teaches men to suppress emotions like fear, neediness, or tenderness to appear strong and in control. Yet these suppressed parts don't disappear. They build up in the unconscious, looking for a way out through hidden channels. When a man in a committed relationship seeks out another woman, he's often not just chasing excitement, he's unconsciously trying to reclaim the disowned parts of himself. The other woman becomes a stand-in for his shadow, the rebellion he can't admit to, the passion he's afraid to claim, or the emotional hunger he's ashamed to acknowledge. This explains why so many men in this situation show a strange duality. They may genuinely care for their current partner while also resenting her. The resentment isn't necessarily about anything she's done wrong, but about what she represents: the life of responsibility, the expectations he's absorbed, the version of himself he feels stuck inside. His partner becomes linked with duty and limits, while the new interest stands for freedom and authenticity, not because she actually offers these things, but because she hasn't yet been touched by the daily realities of compromise and shared burdens. What looks like a betrayal of his partner is often, at its core, a betrayal of his own unexpressed self. He lacks the courage to either fully commit or cleanly leave, because both choices force him to face his own contradictions, to either examine why his current life feels stifling or admit that his fantasies can't survive contact with reality. The shadow also explains why these patterns continue even when they cause suffering. Many men chasing outside connections aren't actually seeking fulfillment. They're acting out an inner conflict between what society expects and their true nature. Maybe he married the right kind of woman to please his family, but secretly longs for a different kind of connection. Maybe he built a respectable life while quietly starving for adventure. The other woman becomes a temporary relief for this split, letting him taste what's missing without having to take apart his entire identity. But this is where the shadow's cruel irony shows up. By refusing to bring these desires into conscious awareness, he ensures they stay destructive instead of becoming a source of growth. The very things he's after, passion, wholeness, authenticity, can only be found by facing what he's running from, not by finding the perfect secret partner. Until he stops blaming his partner for the life he helped build and starts examining the parts of himself he's pushed away, he'll stay stuck in this cycle, mistaking the chaos of the shadow for the thrill of being alive. The psychology behind a man keeping parallel relationships reveals one of the most telling yet overlooked patterns: compartmentalizing. This mental splitting lets him assign very different roles to different women, keeping each connection in a separate mental box that never fully overlaps. His main partner often represents stability, domestic life, and social respectability, the foundation of his outward identity. Meanwhile, the other woman becomes the container for everything that doesn't fit this carefully built image: intense passion, unguarded confessions, or the thrill of being seen as someone new. This split isn't accidental. It's a defense against the frightening idea of bringing these separate parts together into one honest relationship. By keeping these worlds apart, he avoids the vulnerable work of showing up fully with one person, because that would mean facing the contradictions within himself. What looks like a best of both worlds situation is actually a deep fear of true closeness. Real connection means showing up as a complete person, flaws, complications, and all. But for someone caught in this pattern, that level of exposure feels dangerously overwhelming. Keeping his relationship split lets him control how much of himself he shows to each person, so that no single partner ever carries the full weight of who he really is. You might notice he shares things with you that he keeps from his main partner, or the other way around, not because either of you is more special, but because each relationship works as an escape from the other. This explains why such men often panic when the lines start to blur, when the other woman wants more consistency, or when the main partner grows suspicious. The threat isn't just getting caught, it's the collapse of his carefully managed system where no one gets close enough to see the whole picture. There are unmistakable signs when you're being used as an emotional outlet rather than valued as a full partner. Does he only reach out during moments of stress or boredom, treating you as an escape hatch from his real life? Do conversations revolve around his frustrations with little room for your needs or struggles? Perhaps he paints you as his safe haven from a partner he describes as nagging or cold, a story that flatters your ego while covering up his unwillingness to take responsibility for his own unhappiness. Most tellingly, does he resist any move toward greater openness or commitment, no matter how much emotional closeness you share? These patterns reveal an uncomfortable truth. You're not being pursued for who you are, but for what you provide, a release valve for emotions he can't or won't work through in his primary relationship. The tragedy is that this very dynamic blocks the authentic connection he claims to want, leaving everyone involved stuck between fantasy and reality. At the core of this behavior pattern lies a basic immaturity, an inability to hold together life's necessary tensions between freedom and responsibility, passion and stability, selfhood and commitment. This isn't about age or experience, but emotional development. The man who maintains multiple relationships while fully committing to none often lives in a state of painful duality, swinging between being the perfect partner and the free spirit, never discovering that true maturity lies in holding both sides together. He may present as responsible and devoted in his primary relationship while secretly acting out rebellious fantasies elsewhere, never realizing that this very split keeps him from developing the depth he unconsciously wants. This divided existence creates a shallow emotional landscape where no relationship can flourish, because each one becomes merely a role he plays rather than an honest connection. This pattern closely resembles what some psychologists call the eternal youth pattern. A man caught in it stays emotionally stuck somewhere near adolescence, afraid of being trapped while at the same time longing for grounding. He confuses novelty for growth, intensity for depth, and escape for freedom. Much like a character who refuses to grow up, he may genuinely believe each new romantic possibility holds the key to his happiness, only to find the same emptiness waiting once the initial excitement fades. His pull toward the honeymoon phase isn't just about seeking thrills, it's a defense against facing the harder, richer work of building something lasting. The tragedy is that in his flight from imagined suffocation, he misses the real path to freedom, the kind that comes from showing up fully to his choices and doing the work of growing as a person. Often these patterns have roots stretching back to childhood experiences that shaped how he relates to others. Perhaps he watched a parent who seemed stifled by responsibility, which taught him to equate commitment with suffocation. Maybe he learned early that love was conditional, that he had to be either the good child or the rebel, never both. Some men repeat their father's infidelities, not because they lack morals, but because this was the only model they were shown for balancing family life with personal desires. Others may be reacting to childhood emotional neglect, forever seeking in multiple partners the unconditional attention they never received. Until these wounds are brought into awareness, they keep operating like invisible strings, pushing him to repeat the same unsatisfying patterns while he wonders why no relationship ever feels like enough. The painful irony is that in trying to avoid his past, he ends up repeating it, moving from relationship to relationship only to find the same unresolved emptiness waiting inside himself at each new stop. What makes this pattern especially tricky is how it disguises itself as freedom while building its own prison. By refusing to choose, by keeping one foot perpetually out the door, he makes sure that no relationship and no version of himself ever fully develops. The walls he builds to keep his escape routes open become the very barriers to the connection he says he wants. His avoidance of depth becomes a self-fulfilling pattern as the shallow relationships he cultivates confirm his belief that nothing lasts. Breaking this cycle takes the courage he's been avoiding, to stop running from imagined traps and start facing the real work of becoming someone capable of both commitment and individuality, able to honor his own needs without using others as emotional support. Until then, he remains not the dashing romantic figure of his fantasies, but someone drifting through multiple relationships while never fully showing up in any of them. When you find yourself drawn to a man who is already committed, it's worth pausing to examine what role you're being cast in within his emotional story. There's a seductive trap sometimes called the rescuer pattern, the unconscious belief that your love, understanding, or specialness can heal his wounds or complete him. This is especially risky in these situations because the very nature of his divided emotional life means he's not really seeking a partner, but a missing piece. You may find yourself slipping into the role of the understanding one who gets him in ways his partner supposedly doesn't, or the exciting escape from his ordinary reality. But ask yourself, do you want to be someone's escape or their destination, their fantasy or their reality? That distinction makes all the difference between being truly loved and simply being used to soothe someone else's unresolved conflicts. Working out whether you're experiencing genuine connection or just serving as a screen for his projections takes real honesty. A telling sign is how he talks about his current relationship. If he paints his partner as the villain or himself as the victim without taking responsibility, this says more about his emotional maturity than about his circumstances. Genuine connection makes room for your full humanity, your needs, your boundaries, your complexities. Being used as a projection, on the other hand, requires you to stay in a fixed role. The perfect lover, the undemanding companion, the exciting distraction. Notice whether he seems taken with an idealized version of you rather than the real many-sided person you are. Does he welcome your full emotional range or only the parts that fit his fantasy? The painful truth is that as long as he's emotionally tied up elsewhere, what feels like chemistry may actually be him unconsciously seeking completion rather than connection. Before letting your heart get further involved, sit with these questions. Am I filling a gap for him that he should be filling himself? Is he capable of seeing me fully, not just as a contrast to his partner, but as a complete person with my own needs? Would this relationship survive if he had to show up completely without the safety net of his other commitment? And perhaps most importantly, am I respecting myself as much as I'm trying to understand him? These questions aren't meant to shame or judge you. They're meant to protect you from becoming collateral damage in someone else's unfinished emotional work. The healthiest relationships are built between two whole people, not two halves trying to complete each other. If he can't meet you in that wholeness now while still committed elsewhere, he likely won't be able to do so later, no matter what promises are made in moments of intensity. Your heart deserves more than being someone's emotional bandage. It deserves to be chosen completely, not just when it's convenient or exciting, but when it's real. The way forward here isn't about judging him. It's about honoring yourself enough to recognize when you're being pulled into someone else's unresolved patterns. There's a real difference between compassion and self-abandonment, between understanding someone's wounds and letting them wound you in return. By turning your attention inward rather than focusing only on his motivations, you take back your power, not to change him, but to choose yourself. After all, the most important relationship in this whole picture isn't the one he can't fully commit to with you or with his partner. It's the relationship you have with yourself, and that's one worth protecting, nurturing, and choosing every single time. What we've uncovered here is perhaps the most freeing truth of all. His behavior was never about you. The pursuit, the intensity, the push and pull, all of it reflects the unresolved parts of his inner world, not your worth or or desirability. A man who chases connection while clinging to commitment isn't revealing anything about your value. He's exposing his own fragmentation. The healthiest response isn't to internalize his confusion, but to recognize it for what it is, a sign that he still has emotional work to do. And that work isn't yours to finish for him.